Good evening. I'd like to open this council meeting up Thursday, October the 6th. Just stand with me. The mayor will lead us in a prayer and invocation.
Please stand with me. Lord, thank you for a glorious day. Thank you for the weather you provided us and just the community that we live in. We thank you for the staff that we have, for their dedication to the city and what they do, and also to our city council for their commitment to making the city a better place. We ask that you watch over all of us through all these crazy times, help us straighten things out and keep them going forward. We ask that all we do in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kathy, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Shoup.
Here.
Detman. Present. Ivy.
Here.
Lawrence.
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
Carlisle.
Here. Okay, if anyone in the audience has anything they want to talk to us about, if you'll see Clerk Haley, she'll put you on the agenda. Mr. Mayor.
No report tonight.
Really?
Honest.
Wow.
How to
Man.
make it quick. Looks like y'all are going to be here for a while, so I may check out our
You're staying.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Councilman's concerns, comments?
Nothing from me.
No, sir. Nothing.
Dang, that's good. Okay, well, we're moving right along here. We have a consent agenda. I will entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
I make a motion we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Any comments on the consent agenda from the audience, from council? Kathy?
Detman.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes. Okay, we'll move right on. There's no old business, so we'll move right on to new business, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Miss Joy Branston? Okay. You,
Good evening, Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you for a moment. It won't take much of your time.
tell us who you are.
My name is Joy Brastrom. I'm
Thank
the
you.
supervisor of the Peace River Center Domestic Violence Shelter here in Highlands County.
Thank you.
Just a couple of statistics about domestic violence. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men will experience severe physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. 1 in 10 women will be raped by an intimate partner in their lifetime. 16.9% of women and 8% of men will experience some sort of sexual violence in their lifetime. In Highlands, Polk, and Hardy counties, 14,209 domestic violence survivors spent 189,000 nights in a Florida certified domestic violence shelter. We are a Florida certified domestic violence shelter. The need for our services is huge. Domestic Violence Awareness Month is the month of October, and we would like the opportunity to have some awareness for that. We have some, they're plexiglass, I guess, cutouts of women, and they have a placard on them that says that this woman stands in defense of domestic violence victims from the 3 counties that we represent. We would like the opportunity to place those in the circle for 2 weeks as awareness, and we'll also be visiting some of the merchants downtown and some of the large businesses and distributing baskets much like this one with domestic violence awareness information and purple ribbons to signify your support of domestic violence awareness.
Okay. Any,
I move that we approve placing the placards down on the circle
Just a
for 2
question.
weeks.
Just a question, when did you want to place them, ma'am?
Monday, if possible.
I'll second that.
Monday the 12th? Yes. For 2 weeks? Yes,
And that's for the rest of the month?
yes,
Yes.
for the next 2 weeks. It'll
Okay.
be removed before the end of the month.
Okay. We don't want to get them confused with Halloween.
True. So we want to
what?
monitor and
You're confused with what?
Halloween.
Halloween.
Are they
Yeah,
gonna,
they're kind of scary.
they're gonna get with Ken or make sure they're secured? With,
I'd be happy happy to, I've been corresponding with Mr. Huffman, and he said that there was someone in town who knew a couple of good places that we could put them. I will revisit his email and see if I can't connect with someone.
Okay.
They're on a wooden base and they're tied in with wire. So they're relatively, they sway a little bit in the wind, but they're relatively solid.
And if that hurricane comes. this
Yeah,
way-
you'll need to move them.
We'll move them. Don't worry.
They'll be swaying a lot.
Any other questions?
Anybody have any questions? Anyone from the audience have any comments? Kathy, please.
Denton.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Carl.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 10B, request for vacating portions of the road right-of-way.
Cliff Abels here on behalf of Henry Earl Crutchfield Jr. and Henry Earl Crutchfield III, whose properties are bisected by that right-of-way that nobody uses and doesn't go anywhere.
No, it don't.
There was a time when it did, but it was vacated previously. It was not ever built. But there was a platted road that went around. And
Okay.
over time, that has been vacated in different sections.
Okay. Oh, there used to be, Crutchfield used to have a barn down there years ago, and that road went to it. Okay.
So they're asking for conceptual approval. If anybody has any heartburn with the concept.
Any comments? Anyone in the audience? We need a motion.
Make a motion or request as presented, approve the request as presented, sorry.
I'll second it.
Okay, no comments? Okay, Kathy?
Denton.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Carl.
Yes. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
That was easy. Okay, 10C, Community Redevelopment Agency update. Mr. Lydell, would you come talk to us?
Yes, sir, happily. David Lydell, Sebring Community Redevelopment Agency Board Chair. It's really good to be here tonight, and it's truly a privilege to stand here as chair of the Sebring CRA. This is an exciting time to be a member of the CRA and to be involved with it. I'd like to give you a little bit of a recap of what we've accomplished over this past fiscal year and tell you a little bit about some of the projects we've got going on. First, let me tell you that I'm pleased to tell you that we awarded almost $125,000 last year in our 3 grant programs, the facade grant, the downtown revitalization grant, and event marketing grant program that we have. We also reinvested a total of over $601,000 last year into the CRA district. That included the West Center project and the new parking lot across from the waterfront. The CRA is now the proud owner of the 301 and 209 Circle Park Drive buildings. We closed on both of those buildings this week. The board is in the process of discussing what's going to happen with those buildings in the future, but it's our intention to put those out for requests for proposals or RFPs and get them occupied and back in use as quickly as possible. In order to keep the momentum going, we're following up with what our marketing plan told us to do, and which was to determine the stages, or to determine our bonding capabilities. And we're in the final stages of that. It looks like that we're going to end up with a loan as opposed to a bond, but it will give us the ability to reinvest about $7 million into the CRA district, and that process is going to wind up hopefully by the end of the year. The bond idea was a little bit, our size was a little bit too small for a traditional bond issue, and it was a little less expensive to go the loan route. So that's why we've kind of ended up on that. But we hope to close on that by the end of the year and have those funds available for investing in our district. We are in the process of contracting with SNME to update our CRA master plan right now. This plan will cost us approximately $100,000. It will extend the life of the plan for an additional 23 years. We're also going to include some updates, some new incentive programs to help attract businesses to the downtown area. For example, one program would be a rent subsidy grant program that we're looking at. The plan update will include input from council members, as well as city staff and the general public, to determine what the needs of our district really are. This process will take about 6 months to complete, and will conclude with a final presentation to city council for their approval. One of the most exciting projects that we're working on right now is the waterfront project. In 1991, the CRA contracted with Tampa Bay Engineering to develop a water plan district plan. Now, almost 30 years later, we are executing on this monumental project. We're in the negotiation phase with Kimley Horn to develop a site design. The site design phase will be an extensive process that will take approximately 6 months to finalize. Like the master plan, this process will include stakeholder and public meetings. We will also be investigating funding opportunities to help offset some of the expenses. We anticipate that this will be a very large project and will need to address constituent needs as well as underground issues as well. While funding will be the big driving factor in the timeline of the project, we have talked with Kimley Horn, and we estimate this to be about a 3-year project. The CRA board will approve the contract with Kimley Horn at our November 9th meeting, and we expect the first round of stakeholder and public meetings to begin in January. When the process is complete, we will bring a final plan back to City Council for approval. We have also begun working on completing the improvements at the new city parking lot across from the waterfront. The improvements ran a little bit more than expected, just shy of about $130,000 to complete, and the project should be completed very soon. When it's complete, we will have irrigated sod where the teller building was located, new lighting, and the parking spaces will have a new asphalt overlay. It'll truly be a new asset for the city. Lastly, we are working on the final steps of updating our design guidelines. We've worked with the city attorney, city administrator, county planning office, Central Florida Planning Council to update our current standards. I've appointed 2 board members to work with Ms. Vasquez and Jennifer Cota Salisbury to give input on material and design. Once the board has a consensus, we will bring our guidelines back to you for approval, and we hope that these updates will simplify the CRA district's vision for construction going forward. As you might imagine, being a CRA board member is a very exciting opportunity. I'd like to thank you for your recent appointments of Megan DeJamaco and Brandon Craig. While as board members we get the chance to drive the direction of the CRA and I have the chance to stand here and address you, it's the CRA staff that carries out the work of all these projects. The staff is led by Christy Vasquez, who has a passion for the CRA and is the one on the daily basis making sure that we are executing the tasks that it takes to carry out the mission of the CRA. Thank you for the time to update you. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
You've been busy.
We're staying busy.
We appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you.
David, the waterfront project, exactly how much of the waterfront is that going to, are you going to incapacitate with that plan?
That project right now, the site plan that is out there would be from the far side of the library over to include all of the Art League housing area and everything down from Lakeview to Lake Jackson.
Okay. When you say the far side of the library, the back side, the north side, south side?
If I get my directions correct, north.
Okay. So even the library might be included in that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And as well as the Civic Center there?
Yes. All the buildings that are on the site, all the buildings on the site right now are being approached from the design firm, are being approached from the standpoint of what's the highest and best use of the property and what structures are waterfront dependent. That will be coupled with stakeholder meetings and public meetings as well. So once we start moving through that process, it's my expectation that really those conversations are going to drive, do those buildings want to even be there? It's possible that some of those buildings don't want to be there anymore, that there's an alternate location that they would rather be moved to. There might be better use for some of that property, and that the public has weighed in and said, hey, we would use more of this if we had these amenities here. So I think that time to allow the process for people to give the input, whether it be city council, city staff, people who occupy the space currently, allowing them to have that input and then determine and then allow the design firm to go ahead and put together what that yields would make the most sense. So I can't tell you what it looks like, I can just tell you that's the size of what it is today.
Okay. And you are gonna have some public meetings on this so that the public can get their opinions in.
Yes, sir. We have begun the negotiation phase, and as part of that, we talked about what meetings we needed to have, what stakeholders needed to be involved, and we've identified the stakeholders that we knew of at that point. We're willing to add more to it. We've asked for a minimum of 2 public meetings. There's the potential for 3. There's an online survey that they're going to be conducting. You know, they've had a lot of experience going through this process with other municipalities.
Okay, and the timeline on that planning process and possibly even execution is less than 3 years.
Absolutely. Right now, we will execute our contract with them in November. They will start the process that they have to do behind the scenes, which a part of it is like permitting research and whatnot. And they're using that time because it's the holiday season to knock some of that stuff out. January will be when we begin public meetings, stakeholder meetings, and the like.
Very good, okay.
And that should conclude within 6 to 8 months.
Okay, great, thank you.
You know, what are you, kind of give us a little idea, what you're proposing to be there?
That's a great question. That's not my call. That is the
Wait.
whole intention of that 6 to 8 month period, is to determine what's that use. And when we started this, and I kind of in my head would sit there and draw little pictures of what I thought it would, you know, we would develop that into. You know, it's a splash pad, a playground, you know, picnic tables. When you look at what the design firms that we interviewed, and we had live interviews with, I believe, 3 of them, and they showed their proposals and their past projects that they've worked on. This is not stuff I would have dreamed up. That's not my brain. They are going to come in here and listen to what you as council say, what the city staff says, what the public says, what the people who are occupying the space are there, and take those ideas and develop a design that's unique and specific to Sebring to meet the needs of as many people as we possibly can. I think the only thing that you can sit there and look at that space right now, if I was going to form an opinion, it would be to say that you've got one of the most valuable assets of the city, one of the most expensive assets of the city, and it's got concrete and buildings on it. You know, is that really the best use? That would be the question I would put out, and I would like to see what other people answer. But no, the CRA is taking this project up as part of their master plan. We are not taking it up from the standpoint of we've already determined what it needs to be.
Okay. Great.
You have just completed the road going down there though, and that looks really nice.
Yes. Hopefully we'll get a few more things completed here shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we definitely need something to draw more people to downtown.
I completely agree. Some of the things that have been kicked around, and we'll see how it shakes out. I think you could make that, between that and the downtown and the plans that we have for trying to improve the district, you absolutely could make this a destination.
That's what we want. Mr. Devlin, you got anything to say?
Well, actually, I'd like to thank you, David, personally, for all the work you put in, your executive director, Christie, and a couple of words come to my mind, and I think for your board as well. I want to thank you for your energy, your vision, your enthusiasm, and your determination to move forward.
Thank you, Chief.
You have anything to say?
No, I was kind of around when the first waterfront plan came, and I think if that marina and the boardwalk from the Elks Club to Pine Street would be great, so, no, not really. But, I mean, that waterfront plan's been on the shelf for a long time, and I really think the use of that, the proper use of it is how do we do it, how do we enhance, how do we tie the downtown, the circle with the waterfront, you know, that whole kind of, we talked about this for a long time, and you guys have put a lot of time and effort into this, so, and this highly paid jobs we have. But we appreciate, you know, you guys, David, you kind of sticking with it and getting our downtown really kind of looking nice. I mean, did some big chunks, and now we just got to keep the little chunks, keep stuff clean, keep it upbeat, keep this kind of stuff. Try to attract the businesses, small businesses downtown, you know, find out what we really are and who we are, and I think this will all be kind of part of that. But I do appreciate what you guys have done. So
Thank you.
Thank you, David. And Christie, you're hiding back there, but you're doing a great job. Thank you. Okay. 10D, Vicky and Mike Jarvis. Are you gonna come up, Vicky?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mike Jarvis with the President of the Sebring Historical Society.
Vicki Jarvis, the Secretary of the Sebring Historical Society.
As we were talked to you several months ago, and we leased the Weigel House, and we showed interest in the house next door, which is Clovelly House, and we've provided you with the historical significance of that house, and we would like to come to you and ask if we can lease that house under the same terms as we did the Weigel House, and we would like to try to save these houses if possible. And you already have our liability insurance on file, so you're already a lost person on our account, so, you know, we're in good standing with that. So, we've made our presentation over the last 2 or 3 months to you, and so we're here now to formally ask that you lease that house to us. Anything you wanna add?
We do have several board members and here tonight and volunteers here tonight that can answer questions and give their opinions also, if the council is interested.
Mike, I think I got a question. You want to lease it as the same terms that you have now, but I think the letter you sent, you wanted to extend it to 5 years?
Yes.
We would like to have a longer lease, but I'm open to whatever's more comfortable for you, to be honest with you. It's your property, we're just asking to use it.
Well, I think, you know, from my standpoint, I think if you all want to use it under the same terms, I think what's happening with the CRA, kind of this waterfront thing is kind of, if we get to 5 year, what happens in that period of time is something, if the plan comes to say we've got to either move those or do something with it. I think, you know, talking with David and Christie before, that, you know, they're gonna take a look at maybe how we can incorporate those buildings, even if we can, if they've gotta be moved, if they gotta be doing something else. But I think with what the CRA's doing with the plan, this waterfront plan, that's gonna take them another year to 18 months probably to get the plan in place and then past that. But I wouldn't wanna see us kind of go to the 5 year, mess that up, and it may end up being a 20-year plan. You don't know. And I know you guys got a big investment in it, and that's kind of the hard road here is.
And those houses will improve with the waterfront. Those will,
Right.
in my opinion, those will
Right.
actually
And that's-
work with the waterfront.
Well, and that's
Not
part of
knowing what
where
their
I
actual
think
plans are,
that's
but
where.
my thing is, I think that would work, cause that would just have a good benefit, because if, by getting those 2 houses, and then hopefully eventually getting the other greenhouse down there, and some other historic houses that we can have we can make a historic village, and that would just be another great attraction in that area.
And that's all part of what the public part of this is gonna
Yes.
be. And you guys are stakeholders with the Historical Society that's been there, you know, underneath the library. So you'll all be part of this, but I just think extending the lease that we have on that, I think, you know, I agree to leasing, you know, to the 1 year just to match what you have now. And then wait for this plan to see how this plan kind of shakes out and be part of it. So, and that's where I'd encourage, and I know you all will be part of it, so.
Well, when we leased the Weigel House, we were leased under the terms of what was going on. We were, you know, we went in with our eyes open, so to sit here and assume that this is gonna happen or whatever, you know, whatever needs to be done to save the houses is what we would like to try to do.
Right. I applaud you for doing that, so I think, we're losing a lot of our history, so.
Is it okay for me to
You have to come up there
I will.
and tell us who you are. We don't know. Tell us.
I'm already writing it down.
Thank you. My name is Terry Mendel. I'm a major lover of Sebring, Florida, and a board member of the Sebring Historical Society, a very proud board member, kind of new. But we do have a lot of new, very enthusiastic people. Like I've said before, a very proactive, passionate group. And in talking to the community, I really had not heard about a waterfront plan. So, you know, I've been coming to a lot of the meetings and trying to learn. And I have found out from some of our older folks, they don't know anything about the waterfront. And I know that when I came back here after years of being on the, coming to the meetings and so excited about getting back to Sebring, I was very excited about saving the old historic homes, and getting to know the CRA just a little bit. But obviously David and Christy have done a great job, and they're young and enthusiastic, and maybe they don't quite cherish the history as much as the older ones do, but I'm sure they want the very best for our city, and we do too. And there is a way to incorporate all this together where we can work together and have perhaps obviously a waterfront. I can remember going to I forget what it's called, but the Nansesewee play when I was just real little down there. Jack Ingle was the big Indian chief, and just all kind of Seminole Indians around. It was just so great. It's a very historic area. But I think there's a way to keep the history of the area intact and incorporate some of these new ideas, and we so appreciate the CRA and all they're trying to do with revitalizing the downtown. I was just recently in Hendersonville, North Carolina, and just a beautiful little town. I thought, oh my, this would be so nice if we can get something like that for Sebring, and I certainly think it can happen. And we already have a lot of plans for incorporating the circle, the downtown area, and a nice flow down that beautiful new street with the palm trees, maybe a little too close in the center, but still good. But anyway, we are
That's
very
art, Terry,
strong.
that's art.
It's art,
Yeah.
it's lovely art. And my walker and I will just go right around those palm trees. But anyway, I think there's a way we can all work together. We at the Historical Society are beside ourselves with the Weigel building. We're just doing all kind of things. Some of our members have redone the floors. We're gonna paint. We can hardly wait to move in and make a museum and expand. The Cavalli House, we would like to do that also. It will only enhance our area. I am personally dead set against, just tell you right now, dead set against moving those buildings. And I'll do everything I can to see that they don't get moved. However, if more prevail to move it, I will not, I'll probably give up. But anyway, there's just no reason we can't incorporate all that together and be a wonderful addition to our city. So I'm just saying, I just feel like going ahead and saying what we feel. And that's what we want to do. And we have the people, the enthusiasm, the artifacts. We don't want to lose this in Sebring. The old Historical Society was wonderful, but they just basically had potluck dinners, and they didn't really have the foresight, no, that's not the right thing, but they didn't see the need for standing on the line and preserving some of these wonderful old buildings. And the Weigel House, the Cavalli House, they have a wonderful history that's just so special. But anyway, I just wanted to say that, and I again, we are not enemies with the CRA. We want to all work together to make this just great, and there's no reason it can't. And after coming to all these meetings, I just appreciate all y'all and what you put up with for such a wonderful salary. But thank you.
In defense of the CRA, I think the reason people haven't heard of the waterfront project is because this CRA and Christie is more proactive than the past. And that's the reason we're starting to hear a lot of different things that we haven't heard.
And I think that's so great, and we do want to move forward, and I know they're just tired of it not going forward. I
Right.
understand that, and really appreciate it. We can all work together on this, and there's a lot of backing and resources if we funnel it properly and see how to all work together. So, any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for your passion.
Thank you, Terry.
And you won't give up. Yes.
Any other questions?
I have a few comments here I'd like to make.
Go for it, Charlie.
Okay, let me just go ahead. and say that I believe in preserving the mementos from the past. I believe our history is important, and I believe in saving significant structures from our past. And I want to thank the Historical Society for doing that. I think you guys have a great mission. However, I don't believe in living in the past. We need to live in the present with an eye towards our future. I believe we all know that the downtown Sebring area is in great need of help. Our buildings on the Circle have way too many vacancies. The businesses struggle because we just don't bring enough people to the downtown area. We need to do everything we can to increase the people coming downtown. I support the CRA and their efforts in doing that. I think that if we enter into a long-term lease for the important part of the revitalization efforts in contrast to the future plans, we're simply tying their hands behind their back, the CRA. We've given the Historical Society a short-term lease on one building that they have asked for just 2 months ago. And that doubles the area that you had before already. I simply don't know that you need more space this quickly for the additional building that you're asking for. That gives you 3 times the space that you had a couple months ago. But I just want to say I think we need to hold off on the new building, or the old building, if you will. I think we need to hold off on that and start getting some public input. Because I know as soon as you guys get that building, you're going to start working on it. And then it's going to get harder and harder for you to give up on that building, just like the Yellow House now. You're doing work on that. We appreciate that. But the more you get ingrained into those buildings, I know the more you're going to fight to keep them right where they are. And that may or may not be what the public wants. But I would like to hear what the public has to say about this at the public meetings, whether they want to move those buildings, whether they want to keep them there, or whether the Historical Society is served better somewhere else. Personally, I think the Historical Society would be better off down at the Circle somewhere where more people might see you guys and come in instead of down the road off the beaten path, so to speak. So I would like to wait and before we sign any more leases, go ahead and let you guys continue work on the Yellow House. You have a lease on that in place for a year. And get some of the public input at these meetings that are going to start in January. So.
Can I say something else?
Yes, ma'am. You might as well just stay up here.
At least I'm not talking. Well, while I appreciate Mr. Lawrence's opinion about that, and I can see coming from that area, that side of looking at things, but a history is very, very important to a town. Very important. And those homes there have not been used for a while in the historical way. And I think it's very important that we be allowed to move into the Cavalli House. Those 2 houses are very, very important historically. And they're not being used right now. The waterfront idea is a great idea. It can be incorporated, or it might even go to another place. It's a great idea, but that's a historic area down there. And I think that we should be allowed, as the Historical Society of Sebring, to be able to take those 2 historical buildings and be able to renovate them and use them now. We've had a 30-year lapse of anything getting done, and while I appreciate that the CRA is trying to move forward, this is a big project that's going to take major bucks and major input from the city. And we would like to start now to use those and to prove to you that we can be a major part of bringing in people from the downtown area right down through the waterfront to visit our museum and our store that we're going to have and the archives. So I think there's a great deal of value for letting us go ahead and get a lease, and at least a 2-year lease. We're putting in a huge amounts of money and huge amounts of time and effort. And this, we as the Historical Society are a major part of this city. We need to be able to use the historical buildings. And there are plenty of other places that don't have the lovely stamp of history on them. like these two buildings. So I ask you again to please consider allowing us to lease now and begin to work on those two buildings and to show you what we're going to do. Jim Pollard is amazing with the things he has in mind for us to do. And we have people just coming out of the woodwork, so to speak, to be involved. You're gonna see a huge change here. And we would like to be able to have those two buildings. We need those two buildings. We are gonna expand like you wouldn't believe. We are gonna have programs that you will see some fruit from what we're doing in the beginning of a revitalization of the downtown area. So please, please, let us, the people of Sebring who love the history, have those two historic houses. We would really appreciate that.
Comment?
Yes, sir.
Quick question here. How long or whether the houses stay or not is a little premature to discuss here when we haven't seen the plan. Going along with what Councilman Lawrence said, if you had to move there and you've put this money in, are you willing to still lease in the event knowing that it might not stay there? Are you
Yes.
willing to accept a lease?
Yes, aren't we?
If we had to move the houses,
Right.
that would be something that we would have to address. And in order for us to get grant money to be able to move those houses, it takes about 1.5 years to get in a grant cycle to be able to get the money to help us move those houses to another location. And, you
If
know,
we were gonna
we're
move.
fully
Yeah.
aware that is a possibility. But without having the houses, that we could look at them and see what it's gonna take to move them and do some legwork well in advance of what's going on and get in a grant cycle to have the money to do it, we would have to have possession of the houses.
I'm thinking that the plan is probably before any dirt turns over or anything like that, it's probably 2 years at least, right? I mean, by the time you do the planning and that kind of thing, I would not object to like a yearly lease.
What about two?
Well, I'm not finished. With the ability to renew it.
Just
at
like
the
the
end of
other
the
home.
year, if you know.
It's gonna
if
be
it
beautiful.
works. Well, it's gotta mesh with the waterfront plan, I'm afraid, so.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think we can work it all out.
We need to hear from some more of the public, though, and
Absolutely.
we understand the historical point of view. But you guys aren't the only ones here that have a stake in this.
But there are hundreds of us.
There are thousands of people in Sebring.
Well, there are thousands of us that are
So
for saving
we need to hear
historic
from some more
buildings.
people before we commit to this.
Well, how
Before we
many do
commit
you
to
want
one
and where?
person. Well, you know, we're having some public meetings with the CRA.
But not till
No,
January.
listen to me, please. Okay? Yes, in January. But you've got all you can handle right now with the Yellow House. You know, it wasn't long ago before you had nothing. You were looking at Santa Rosa 3 months ago,
Yeah.
and nothing happened there. We want to see some performance with what you have before we go
Can't
on.
say nothing happened there because we did make an offer on the Santa Rosa and the owner turned us down.
Yeah.
So we
It
had to go
wasn't our
looking
fault.
someplace else.
Okay.
But I have another question for you.
Okay, Vicki.
Since you said move on the circle downtown, where?
Well,
tell
the
me
CRA
where.
has a couple of buildings they might help
Those
you with.
buildings are not large enough.
Councilman that might.
Well,
and
one of them's
they're all
18,000 square feet, so I think maybe it is, or 12,000 square feet.
Well,
But you've
I,
got 2 stories on that and that's, you know,
And that's what,
But
but
if we
it's not
went in,
able to have
there's,
something
we
on
need
both-
more input from the public is what I'm advocating.
okay, I'm gonna have to agree with, Mr. Ivy. First of all, we know anything that's not being used deteriorates.
Correct.
And if I'm not mistaken, both those houses needed work. So I'm not opposed of having the same type of lease. And I think I'm not sure when that plan's gonna come about, but, you know, until then, you know, a yearly lease, I don't have a problem with that. You improve the houses and it makes them better. If they have to be moved, at least they'll be in better shape. So,
Well, it's easier for us to get donations and excitement and enthusiasm if we at least have a 2-year lease. The 1-year lease is a little bit hard to get people to, a little bit harder to get people. But we've got the people that'll come out in favor of this, I'm just telling you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I myself, a 1-year lease, like we have at the other house, that automatically renews if both parties agree. Okay, you don't want the expense of the house. You would rather somebody else maintain that expense. If the public comes back and says they have a better use for it, and we have a 1-year lease, then that lease is over. And if there's a better use for it, there's a better use. So I myself want to work with you guys to do what's best for those houses.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. We're over here debating this right now. It's very premature in one sense, because it depends on our plans for the waterfront. But I don't think anything will probably significantly happen there for a couple of years after, going through the planning stage and all the public hearings and things that will happen. That if you had a lease that's, like you say, renewable, but as long as you know there's a possibility, I'd have a backup plan starting to generate in my mind just in case, because the waterfront plan's going to have a lot of juice to it, to move forward. So,
David, can you reiterate to us, please, the timeline?
David Liddell, CRA Chair. Yes, the public input meetings will begin in January. The whole process from November 9th to completion will be 8 months. So at the end of 8 months, that's when we will come back to you with a plan for the City Council to approve. During that process, we'll be seeking the funding and everything else. This is not, and I don't have the price tag yet on what this plan is, but my biggest fear is that we're expected to engage this firm, the properties are tied up, we're not able to move forward, and this will be a 6-figure commitment. I can tell you that much. I know for sure. The master plan was over $100,000. I'm sure this will be at least that, if not more.
Right.
But we are not going to put that on the shelf. I'm not going to spend $100,000 and stick that plan on the shelf for the next 30 years. We are closing on that $7 million loan within the next 60 days. So, my expectation is that no, we are moving forward, and once you have a plan, there will be a plan of when we're going to turn that dirt.
Right.
Yes, sir.
When do you think that if the houses were not going to be incorporated in the plan, that they would need to be something else moved or something else?
I don't know that I can answer that question,
Yeah.
because I don't know where they start. I don't know what timeline they would be on. We have offered that, like we have with other historical properties around here, if it costs X number of dollars to demolish it, and that's what we're being asked to do, we're willing to give that money towards the efforts to take those properties or renovate them. We did that with the Blue Building. It's not just redevelopment doesn't mean demolition all the time. So we can work with that. But I think that having the 1-year leases so that there's not an ongoing perpetual fight is what I would like to avoid.
Would a lease that included that if there is a conflict, that the lease, that it would have to be moved, the lease wouldn't hold? You could.
I would like to be able to take that as face value, but I've also been told that from some members that they're not moving.
From some members of what?
The Historical Society.
That they're not moving from those houses?
Correct.
Wow.
And that's the problem
That's
we're
like
gonna have.
hardcore. That's not working with us.
I got a question. We do want to work with you. I got a question for David. David, can't you see how those wonderful historic homes could be incorporated into the waterfront plan? How we can have the art group, the Art Society, Highlands Art Society, all incorporated. There's ways to do it. There's plenty of room there for all of us. And to have a beautiful waterfront thing. I'm all for
Terry,
that.
you need to come to the mic.
Oh,
Why don't we do it? Well, let me.
I'm all for it.
Why don't we? I mean, you guys agree to a year-to-year lease. I think in realistic terms, David, you got 8 months for the plan.
Correct.
Then you've got engineering. Then you've got an RFP process, and if it goes like the Circle did, we'll have it done within a year. If it goes like West Center, you guys have like 7 or 8 years being those buildings. But I know it wasn't your fault. But I mean, I really think realistically, you're going to be well into 2 years into these buildings. But it's under the understanding, like Kurt said, that, you know, you understand they may be there, or they may not, but you're gonna have a lot of input, so why don't we look at leasing the Clavelli house on the same terms, just tie the lease together the same date. So you
For
have.
1 year.
With 1 year.
For 1 year, right.
Right,
I mean,
right.
you just tie it to whatever lease is up in 10 months or whatever,
Yeah.
just so they're together on that side of it. I mean, I think we can shortcut a lot of this, because Terry, a lot of the discussions are gonna have are what's gonna be had over the next 8 months.
Yeah.
We know the passion that you guys have for that place, and it's history of Sebring. We're losing some buildings that have been here for a long time, and we can't continue to lose buildings. So,
Right.
you know, and this is what I would recommend to the council, is just to give them the lease that ties for the 1 year, that ties the buildings together, so you're not gonna be 10 months on one and 12 months on the other. This way you can stagger them together, so.
The existing lease expires August 5, 2021.
Okay.
So if you just tie them together, and then it'll be a year from there. Pardon?
That's less than a year.
No, what I'm saying, just for the ease of it,
Okay.
so they're
Okay.
together, so you're not
Well-
kinda.
Well, we can
Right,
keep,
as long as all parties are in agreement.
okay,
which
we
I
can
think
keep
with
hashing this
present
over,
time
or
we
we
are
can
gonna
have a
be.
motion.
But it was my understanding
Huh?
that it was an agreement.
Hold on.
Leonard said hush.
Oh, no.
No, I said we can keep hashing this over, we can get a motion.
Yeah. I'll make a motion that we go ahead and extend the lease tied to the existing lease that they have, which will be for a period of 10 months on this, but they will be tied together for 1 year with options to renew after the 1 year if both parties agree.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'm not gonna ask for no more comments. We've had plenty. Kathy, will you,
Yeah, I wanna read this back.
you wanna read it back?
Well, I'm gonna read the motion.
Okay,
Extend the lease for the lease the Clovelly House with the existing lease of the Yellow House. I just put to August 5th, 2020, because that's the date.
2021.
I'm sorry, oh, gosh, 2021, with an option to renew by both parties year to year.
Agreed by
Yes.
both parties.
Agreed by both, renew,
Yeah.
Right,
agreed by both parties.
okay.
One additional comment I'd like to just make, though. I want you guys to understand that the CRA is spending a ton of money to come up with a big project and a big plan. So you really need to
You're
think
right.
about where we could maybe move those houses if they don't fit in.
And I hope you heard David say that there probably is some resources to help move it if that's what happens.
Right.
That's what he said.
Well, we're
So-
gonna go for what's the best for the city of Sebring.
That's
Okay.
good.
That's what we're all looking
We
for.
are.
We all do.
Okay, Kathy, will you pull the board?
Yes, sir. Detman.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for coming up.
I could have had that done for you 20 minutes ago.
It wouldn't be as much
Okay,
fun,
next item is, let me get to it, is E, 10E, health insurance.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The insurance committee met and we received one proposal. Anchor Benefits coordinated the proposals for our reinsurance carrier. And there's an increase of 7.06% to the fixed costs, which are about $34,000 for the next year. And I just would, the insurance committee recommended that we move forward with Nationwide, who is the current provider.
Okay.
Do we have any questions?
Any questions?
We spent plenty of time on all this, I can tell you that.
Okay.
We're not
Myself,
done.
The mayor, Kathy, the whole.
We're not done yet.
We're not done yet.
We're still not done. We got a meeting next this coming Friday too.
This part we're
Yeah.
done with, though. This
Yeah.
is a renewal for
Yeah.
our reinsurance and
I'm prepared to make a
this
motion.
contract.
Well, I just want to say this, Tom. People see us sit up here and do this. They don't see the other time that we spend.
Well, like this afternoon, we were here from 2 o'clock until about 4:30. Went home, ate, freshened up.
And you're
We're
back.
back again.
Right.
So-
And there's
this-
days-
And that's the second time, we're third time,
So,
so we'll.
yeah.
We signed
we'll
up
get
for
through
it.
That's it. That's where we get paid the big bucks. The big bucks.
That's it.
Big buck.
Big buck.
Okay, we need a motion.
Make a motion, we approve the renewal recommendation with Nationwide as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We have any comments from the audience, from the board? Hold the board.
Detman.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Cardon.
Yes. Okay, moving right along to 10F. Penny, you're back up.
I am. Amendment 2020-7 is an amendment to the health insurance plan document. This was, again, another item that was discussed by the Health Insurance Committee several months back and rediscussed again at the end of September. And what this does is it requires that when an employee retires, they make an election for their vision, dental, and health insurance. And does not allow them, once they've made that election, to, if they choose not to continue with that coverage, they can't later rejoin and receive that coverage. So there was an amendment that was provided by our TPA, Anchor Benefits, and we had some wording changed by our city attorney, Mr. Swain, and that's the amendment that was left for you at your stations this evening.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
How does that go as far as after they retire? Who pays for that then? Do they pay for the full amount, or how does that work? And I'm not on the insurance committee, so give me a little briefing.
So that is one of the discussions that we were working through today, and the idea is that the retiree would fund the full cost of the insurance.
Which is,
We want it to be revenue neutral so that it doesn't come out of the city coffers, but we offer them a plan that is at least competitive with anything out in the marketplace.
We're talking about the entire insurance.
and their family
And
as
currently,
well,
that's
then.
not the case, is what you're saying?
No, the city is subsidizing all of the different plans, and you're well aware that we've had significant losses over the past 2 years, and so we are trying to make some changes to the plan with deductibles, the insurance, the co-insurance, the premiums, as long as some additional options that can be available that we will hopefully see some cost savings to the plan. So those are all things that will be presented to the council at the next meeting.
It's a
Thank you.
long laundry list of about page this long and then about this big, and we went through every one of them.
So basically what I understand at the present time, and again, educate me a little bit, but that costs about $10,000 a year that we put into our self-insurance plan, and that's what the employee will put in after retirement?
It would be greater than that, because currently the city is funding $812, which is what the retiree is paying today, per
They pay
employee.
$800 per month?
Per month.
I see, okay,
And so even with that, we're showing losses.
okay. And then I just have one other possible suggestion, and that would be, and they probably do at any rate, I don't know, and I'm not privileged to that information, but once they're eligible for Medicare, that they would not be able to continue that.
And we're not allowed to do that.
Okay.
We have to offer them, if we have health insurance and they elect our insurance, we have to pay primary. If they elect not to be on the city plan, they can opt out. But with that, and those were some discussions that have taken place, you would, in order to incentivize that person to actually go to Medicare, then you would need to pay them a stipend. Well, then you would have to offer that stipend to all employees.
Okay, so
So
even,
it can become
even
very
after they're
costly.
retired, we have to continue to give them the option to
Age
continue the
discrimination.
insurance?
Oh, because, yeah.
You
If they
couldn't treat
choose-
them differentially.
You have to treat them all the
based on
same.
age.
Yeah.
But for today's purposes, you're only making a decision on whether or not someone has to make an election as of the day of retirement,
Right.
and then they can't opt in later when they find
Right.
themselves in need of insurance coverage and hadn't paid for it for the preceding 10 years. So this
Yeah.
says if you wanted,
Right.
you got to elect.
Yeah, I
and
understand, I just
everybody
wanted,
that has been retired will get the opportunity in this open enrollment to
Yeah.
join in if they hadn't up till this point.
There's been an understanding that they can not elect that coverage at retirement and then come on to the city health plan at a later date. And so during this open enrollment, we're gonna give them the option to elect that, but past this open enrollment, they'll not be able to
Okay.
elect. if
And
they
then
do
that
not.
also has to be with pre-existing conditions, right?
There's no,
think so.
no on the city's plan?
What's your question?
Well, the question is that the people that we're gonna allow back in, if they choose to, they can have pre-existing conditions, we still have to allow them back
Oh,
in.
yes, sir, yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
okay. So only the people, well, I don't know this for a fact, but the people that may wanna come back in may have some serious pre-existing conditions.
They can't come back in.
They've been doing that
That's the whole
up
point.
till now anyhow.
Yeah,
I think
that's
it's at
what
least
this
the
is all about.
possibility.
Cannot come back in.
After this
You
year.
gotta make a
so You
decision
don't want them
up
to
front.
You
come
make a
on later,
decision.
once they have health issues.
Right, exactly.
Live
To the
with it.
plan.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
Make
this
sure it's
pretty
costly.
much says is you have to make a decision.
right.
For this year.
This year. No, I understand.
Right, I'm talking about even when you retire, you have to make that decision.
Yes, sir.
Make a decision when you, yeah. when
Right, you can't
retire,
wait, you have to make
And
the
all the
decision.
retired employees who are currently retired have to make the decision
So-
this year as well.
This year.
If they have
Right.
coverage.
And they have the opportunity, if they have coverage,
If they
correct.
have
If they
Right.
did not take coverage when they left, this is not an option for them at all.
Okay, yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we need a motion.
Make a motion, we approve amendment 2020-7 of the health plan, insurance plan document as written.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, and a second, is there any discussion? Kathy?
Chapman?
Yes.
Ivy?
Yes.
Lorenz?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
Carlisle?
Yes. Okay, moving right along, business from the audience, the, worship and prayer event.
Is that me, Marilyn?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So this is very
So
broad.
tell us who you are.
I'm sorry, I'm Marilyn Schnell. I'm founder and president of His Habitation Ministries. And I would like to be permitted to hold an event on October 17th. I know that's coming up quickly. I made these up just this afternoon about 4 o'clock. It's very raw. I'm not sure that's gonna stand. Most of it will. But just to address some of the issues going on, my heart is worship, prayer, proclamation of truth, remembrance of our forefathers, what our nation was founded upon, Judeo-Christian values. I held the first one last month in a parking lot on 27 with permission, of course, of the owners. Still one nation under God. Some of the speakers were Jerome Kazubowski, Pastor Lonnie Wells, Virgil Vieto, who teaches government at the high school. So arranging for a handful of speakers to come. They'll have about 15 minutes, each of them, to speak. And worship in between, and patriotism, starting off with Pledge of Allegiance, perhaps the national anthem, and we'll proceed from there. So I plan on it going till about 8. I said 8:30 to give us a little leeway. One of the speakers I'm reaching out to, who is a pastoral speaker, has something else going on and may need to ask if we could push it up to 5 o'clock. So I don't know if that got in the information for you. On the flyer, I still have it as 6.
Right.
But it may be 5 to 8 or 8:30.
That's what's on our papers, 5 to 8:30.
And I did ask for permission to block off those streets because last month, which got very little promotion, but we had at least 110 people show up with lawn chairs, plus all the speakers, and then we had plenty of people sitting in cars in the parking lot. And I just feel it's a safety measure more than anything with
They had,
crossing that circle.
They had a worship event down there 2 weeks ago, and probably had 250 people. They left the street open, and it's kind of, I mean, it's sometimes hard just to close the circle down on the spokes because of people's businesses and that stuff, but it was handled it's handled pretty good, and it was kinda neat, the people coming around drove really slowly to see what was going on, and some pulled over, so.
And
So
that
it
would
was-
be fine with me too. I don't have to do
Right.
the.
I just let you know, it was a very positive, the same type of event, a unity type event. And, they had, I bet you there's 200 people down there.
Okay.
And it flowed well. People are slow around the circle, they see the public, and they stop. And actually, a few cars pulled over and joined the event too, so.
That would be fine with me. So, I was just thinking for safety purposes, cause sometimes I know at Christmas even coming up on and off that center area, it can be a little, unsafe to me. But, I'm very comfortable with doing that.
Okay.
I want to just say, thank you for doing this. I think this is a great thing. I think our community and our country needs a lot of unity right now.
Thank you.
So anything we
And
can do
prayer.
along those,
And prayer.
yeah, and
Yeah.
prayer, a lot of prayer.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for holding this.
Any questions?
I've got a question. Did Bob speak to you about rent insurance or anything of that nature, or
Mm-mm.
having insurance?
Mm-mm.
Is that something you could provide or not, you know?
I'd have to contact somebody and as long as it's not going to cost me an arm and a leg, I could do that.
We have to have that.
You
Without-
have to have that.
Yes.
Okay, so-
If it's
It's a liability.
city sanctioned, meeting, then there has to be insurance.
What do I need to get?
I think it's $1 million, isn't it?
Yeah.
Scott,
Okay.
cash.
We'll guide you down that path.
You will?
Yep.
You can go online to eventhelper.com, I think.
Yeah.
is it is, so.
It's a
It's
single
re-
day's
it's very
coverage.
reasonable,
Yeah.
especially for that kind of an event, so.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
They said it's I believe it's eventhelper.com,
Uh-huh.
and they sell event insurance online, and it's extremely reasonable.
It's very
especially-
reasonable. Yeah.
Especially for this
Event
kind of
helper.
event, yeah.
Okay, good.
I think a parade is like $300, and that's a very reliable.
Yeah,
thing,
this would be a
so.
lot less than that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the beer
I
fest
will
is
do
more,
that.
but this
Yeah.
isn't the case.
And so how do I let you know? Do I get a certificate?
You'll
You
get
get
a
a
certificate.
Okay.
Well, Bob and
You'll
I will
write
reach
me.
out to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
You need a motion?
I make a motion that we approve this event as presented.
Does that include the closing of the streets?
Do we need to do
I
that?
actually would rather not close them, but I was just my
Mhm.
concern,
It-
but
it-
you've alleviated that.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, it was kinda neat to have the cars kinda drive around, you just kinda watch
Yeah.
the people and that stuff, and when there's people in the circle, it's not, they gotta stop at the circle, or at least slow
Right.
down to a reasonable speed.
And
And
it
I
does get to
intend-
be more expensive if you have to close the
Right,
street,
costs
so
more.
Right.
I think if we just go
intended
with
to
it
do
this
that,
way.
one of those worship
Yeah.
events, and you have to park a distance away in order to get to the circle, limit people who have issues with
So you're-
walking, so.
Insurance, the city.
Yeah, your motion has to, with approval of the insurance?
With the approval with the city as an additional insured.
Okay.
Second.
But not closing the streets.
Closing,
Right.
no,
Not
the
closing the
Not
streets.
streets are open.
Any comments?
Yes, sir.
Oh, Lord.
Devin.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lorenz.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Squad.
Yes.
I do have one question, when is Dee's event? Is that the 24th?
That's this weekend. No,
Is it-
that's this weekend.
is it
That's
tenth?
this weekend.
Okay.
This
It is.
weekend.
I wasn't sure if it was.
Tenth.
Yes,
This
it's
is-
this,
Another event downtown,
All
So-
this month, so
Yep.
the 17th was about the only
Good,
night
okay.
that was free, so.
Yeah. We're pretty packed now for the rest of the month.
right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, look forward to it. Mr. John Bowman?
John Bowman. Talking about the ordinance, section 26-183 that we talked about last meeting I was here. It's for, custom prints building down on Lakeview. So we're changing or revisions on the, ordinance that I put together. maybe it'll fly, maybe it won't, so. Yeah, he's good looking. Can't have my artwork.
Do you have more than one copy, or we just?
No,
Pass them along.
I got stuff. Just got mixed up. I brought some pictures of.
I think you all have this in front of you, so we.
Yes.
we don't
Oh, you
need
have that already?
Yes, sir.
Yep. So this is what revisions on the verbiage that I did. I don't know if you had a chance to review it or not. It's highlighted what we changed so that it kinda gives a little bit more leniency on the people that want to construct.
Partially covered is a very
Broad.
nondescript word.
No.
What is that? I mean, you know, there's no, that could be one piece of siding.
No, I agree.
So I can tell you right now,
That
that's.
still has to be approved though. I mean, this is just an idea
Yeah.
that I put forth and so you guys can comment. We can
Yeah.
make it however it's gonna be okay with everybody involved.
Is there a
It gives you a little bit of room to work.
Is there a percentage of coverage that you think would be reasonable?
Let me show you what I'm proposing for this building. This is what it'll look like. Only got 4 copies, but you could, they're all the same.
They're all the same?
Spread them around. So this is just a standard, it's a metal building without anything fancy designed into it. So I was looking at the EFIS system before.
You wanna keep one here?
We'll give you these back at the end.
So it's got the rib, vertical rib paneling, siding, is normal. So I came up with a different idea of the hardy board, which is less expensive. The EFIS that I talked about before was just ridiculous priced, more than the building cost to put the skin on. But this is kind of the partial coverage that I was talking about. You can see on there, it changes the looks of it.
Yeah. Is that considered a skim finish or?
Well, on these photos I got here, I did this on another building down in 27. So you can see the differences. This is the textured finish that's on a hardy board that comes like that. You can paint over texture.
Yeah.
You see, it's kind of hard to see. And then, then you paint over, but this is, of course, the lap side of the hardy board. So on the drawing you have, the bottom band, which is down here, would be a lap, goes all the way around. And the contrast of the finish, the skim finish, is on the vertical part with paint, so you can all paint it in.
So what's the texture on the red portion?
The texture on the red will be this, it's a finish that's on
the hardy board?
So it's a textured look.
Looks like wood,
Yeah.
right?
It looks
Okay.
like it's stucco skim.
Oh, it's just, okay.
It looks like.
Okay,
but
so
it's
it's,
not.
okay.
So, it looks the same, but you don't have to have a skim on it. And it accepts the paint real well. So when you put it over on the rib, the vertical rib, of course you're gonna you need a rib closure. So I got, came up with was, polystyrene closure that's stamped, which I made a stamp for whatever rake you're on. So you stamp out the polystyrene to close the gap between the hardy board and the rib, and the vertical rib. So you put that in there as a cell closure, and then you caulk it, and then it accepts the paint as well. So keeps it all dry. Well, you can make whatever color you want. You can cover however much you want. It just to change the look of a metal building into something different.
Was that something, I mean, it sounds like he's covering the building. So it
Not the
doesn't
whole
look like-
building.
so it doesn't
Not the
look
whole
like-
building.
No, what he's talking about installing is on the picture, the red.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's a hardy board product, so it's not the metal, it's a concrete board,
Right.
and it has a stucco look to it.
Plus it makes the building look nice.
It makes it, I mean, I
And then
like
the
this
gray
design.
portion's a rib, is the,
Yeah.
Say it again?
is the gray
Regular
portion
metal.
is the
Yes,
regular metal.
yeah.
so-
Vertical, it's a 12R rib.
Yeah.
So this just goes over the rib, and then the polystyrene, which I'm gonna use to close this.
Is this gonna be the color of it, or is this just your,
That's what the color the customer wants.
okay,
And he made whatever color he likes, but
yeah.
Right.
I
It
think
looks
it'll
nice.
blend in well. It's a light gray with a dark gray trim
So,
package.
as far,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, as far as being in our, code to do, we've gotta be a lot more definitive than what's in there right now. Partial won't work, and I like this, I think it looks nice,
Mhm.
although I think it's a metal building, but the next guy that comes in, we need to be able to address that and have some definitive answers.
We have to change our ordinance, don't we, Ben?
We have to
Yes,
change
we
it, yeah.
have to change the ordinance, and that's what he's proposing here, and nailing down what the partial is. Is that 25%, 30%, is it some percent on the
Maybe
front that's
what's
different than the
aesthetically
sides?
pleasing or approved by the government.
The
I mean,
government?
By you, by.
And that would have
council.
every one of them come to council.
And we don't have
Well,
that.
if it's, yeah, I hear you. but-
And that, so they just, staff's gotta be able
So
to make a
what part-
decision if
so you
if
have
it
to make a,
qualifies or doesn't.
Coverage ratio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the front is complete, with the exception of the, well, that's a gable end, isn't it, so it's not complete.
Now,
Actually,
you gotta put the sign up in there too, so it's gonna have the vertical rib on top of the.
yeah, on top of where the gable is, that's where the sign's gonna go, way
Yeah.
up, okay.
So that would be
But you'll
like
still see it. You're still
77
gonna
or
see the
80%
vertical
on the
rib.
front.
Yeah.
It's a contrast of both.
25% on the side.
Yeah, I don't mind it, except for we have to be definitive.
I'm gonna throw out a suggestion, just say maybe on the front we do 100%, and then on the sides 50%, and on the back, if you can't see the back from another street,
Yeah, I didn't put anything on the
0%.
back of this one, cause it's up against another building.
Yeah, and that would make it, in essence, 50% average throughout, 100% on the front, 50% on the sides, and
The
0
way
on the
this
back.
is now, though, is not 50% on the side.
No, it's less.
It's not, but it's just the contrast with the angles and that kind of stuff.
I think it looks
I think-
nice.
I agree, but
Maybe like a 25% on the side, but someone coming forward with a new building that they're gonna redo, they can order all these things differently than it is right now. It just costs a lot of money. So,
But that would leave them
Yeah,
the
some
ability
kind
to
of
do the
guideline.
corners or something, some different combination of where that 25 or whatever
Mhm,
percent
yeah. Right.
goes, so it's got some architectural difference,
Sure.
or can have it.
Just to kind of clarify it, and on this particular building, dollars wise, I mean, what are we talking about here?
we're talking about a $15,000 ad for this part, just for the material installed.
Uh-huh.
Paint's gonna be another 10,000 probably, so $25,000 ad.
Wow, I need to-
Versus $68,000 that we were gonna have to do with the EFS.
The paint is 10 grand for that?
I'm just throwing a number. Paint don't cost 10 grand, the guy that painted.
I get the labor portion of that bill.
Yeah, so I might be a little heavy on it, but,
Uh-huh.
I mean, versus the EFS program system.
Right, we're heading in the
I
right
mean, it's,
direction.
you know,
No,
Yeah,
this
I
is-
like your idea.
I do
very,
too,
I
but
mean, it's a lot.
It looks nice. It looks, and
I
you
think it's
gotta
gonna look
consider,
really nice.
there's other metal buildings sitting there.
You know, we gotta, I kinda wanna take us in a little history trip here back to, Jeff, Gordley. When he was here to put that metal building up, and we pretty much stuck to our guns on the ordinance.
well, we thought,
had to
we
cover it
actually
in-
told him that we would discuss the ordinance,
Correct,
so that's what we're doing.
right.
Has he put his metal building up yet?
I have no idea,
No,
so.
he
We're gonna
hasn't.
try to either do that or change the zoning on it to get it to proper
Yeah.
zoning where it could do that, so. But I'm
doesn't
just
it
saying
break
that,
off the mount?
I'm
Yeah.
saying this is kind of the second one, I think we probably, instead of John coming here and then the next guy coming here is look
gotta
at that,
come
look
up
at that
with something.
ordinance and change the ordinance.
Well, that's what we're talking about doing.
You know,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think the step is, it's not here, it's where we get with Central Florida Regional Planning Council or somebody to say, okay, let's,
And she gave us some ideas of,
Right.
you know, combinations of different things that would suffice, and you could do it on a percentage basis. It's hard to think of another, off the top of my head, of another way that's easy enough for staff to calculate to say, yes, this fits, or no, it doesn't, where you don't argue over.
I think we just have to have something complete to finalize this, 'cause we can talk
Yeah.
about it all day long
So
and not
should
take
we change
action,
that to
so.
a percentage ratio of the wall siding?
Well,
Can we get Central Florida Regional Planning to go ahead and put together an ordinance for us? That we have something concrete to look at?
yeah.
Maybe even use this as an example.
Right.
Yeah, that
Maybe
looks
80 or
nice. I
90.
think it.
Well, I think we show her this.
Different concept, right.
What they had come up
Concept-wise.
with had some examples, that made it sort of easier to understand.
I mean,
Right.
she has provided examples, I think, in the past.
Correct.
Did we, you can finish this building, right? Didn't we say you could get a CO or something?
Yeah.
So it's not
We
holding
can
you up?
dry in, no, we're fine, but I just
Okay.
gotta finish it
Yeah, to get paid,
to make it look good.
right.
Cause I'm not gonna, you'll never live it down. Gotta look good.
So it is a big building, so.
You're on the right
and
track.
your name's up there, so.
I'm gonna make it good.
Yes, you are.
So
Well, I
that's-
like that idea of getting her involved.
I think we need to
That'd be good.
put the ordinance to bed
Yeah,
if we're gonna
yeah.
do it,
Right,
you know?
so, yeah.
And we'll give her this and maybe some input from us at the same time.
But, just for a little bit of more input from you guys though, to guide her, what are you thinking percentage-wise? I mean, I threw out a number of 50% on the sides, but what do y'all think?
Well, this is definitely not 50%. I don't know what
It's
the
probably
percentage-
30% though.
Is
It's
it?
Yeah, I was
probably
thinking
30.
25 or 30. You
Yeah.
know what I was thinking, Charlie?
Yeah.
If he actually went through the task of measuring, pulling the tape on this and finding out what percentage of the front is actually covered, because we like it.
Yeah, the front's
And we like
100%.
the design on the
It's not,
sides,
though.
what percentage
It's
is
not.
that? So it might be
The gable is
80
not
and
covered.
25, or
Okay.
Right.
90 and 30, or whatever.
Yeah.
I think we're 25-ish on the side.
Right, and the front's not 100% because of the
Right, 'cause
gable,
of the
but.
gable end.
I don't think this is gonna be difficult for Jennifer to do.
She'll
She's
do it.
already come
She'll
up
do
with
it.
something with percentages.
Yeah, we'll give her this as an example.
Yeah.
But you're thinking more accents for the sides, not
Yeah,
necessarily.
Right.
I don't think you guys have seen it, but the CRA has seen it.
They have seen it, this?
What she's seen, what she's presented, they've seen.
Okay,
All right,
I
well,
don't
thanks.
think you all have seen it. but-
Thanks.
okay.
Okay.
But
Appreciate
you've
it.
done a
That'd be good.
presentation before them in reference to
Well,
the.
that's
She
what-
has?
Oh.
Well, why haven't we seen that, I wonder?
You want these
the
back?
CRA decision on what they. want
You need to give
downtown.
one to someone, that's fine with me.
You got yours right there, mister.
If you need this.
No, I don't.
There you go.
One needs to stay.
What did I
Thank
do
you.
with my
Yeah.
thing?
I'm good, I have mine.
She's got one, okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
In here today, I don't know about yours.
I'm not sure CRA gave full approval.
I can't hear you, man, I'm old.
I'm not sure the CRA gave approval on it. But you presented some concepts.
Okay.
Yeah, we might
I'd
want
like to move
get-
forward
get from that
basically with
level
this
too.
design.
Not to do the outside, no, sir.
No,
Not
you're
till
gonna-
not till the ordinance is changed.
The ordinance has to be changed.
When will that be, you think?
It's gonna be a while yet, that's why I was asking if you
The
could get a
CRA
CO.
does the waterfront, so.
Sorry.
When, really?
Ah.
Ballpark?
Probably takes
December?
60 days.
Yeah, it'll be a couple months for
They
sure.
have two public hearings on it, so.
Yeah, it has to be a public hearing as well,
Two of
so.
them, yeah.
But he
It
can,
affects everywhere, you gotta put extra public hearings and
Yeah.
add time and all this.
Well,
but he
problem I
can
might have with
move
that, 'cause I
on.
gotta
Did
run-
we tell him he could
put the windows in, so
put the bill?
I could probably move forward on the front.
He can move forward on the inside.
What do you want
Storefront.
for Christmas?
Do what now?
Move forward on the inside.
Well, that's what I'm
The
saying.
exterior of the
He-
building,
Well, he has
So-
to put the building up to move forward on the inside.
So
Has to have
those
it right in
windows
with the
are
windows.
gonna be, you gotta put trim around the windows. Well,
Yeah,
put
I
the
gotta
trim around the
trim over the
windows, put the
hardy.
windows in, trim them out with a piece of hardy board so you can butt your side into it. And then work the inside.
Yeah, we can do all that.
And you could actually get a CO without this being done.
Mhm.
So the the owner could occupy it.
Yeah. Okay.
well,
Sounds
I don't
good.
think, yeah, I don't think you could do
Well, I
that.
mean, ask him, what do you think?
I don't think you can get a.
If you can't put a metal building up in the city, you can't get a CO on it, so.
What?
You could get a temporary, how about that?
Yeah, Yeah,
temporary.
let's let the building inspector come up here and tell us what's up. I mean, to me, it makes sense, right?
Yeah,
Beyond the, sorry, Greg Griffin, building official, beyond the, structure, this is pretty much all aesthetic, so structurally, from my perspective, I don't have a problem giving a CO.
Okay.
So if the ordinance doesn't pass,
Then you gotta do 100%, right?
What- so-
Pass.
So it needs to be, no, but Greg, his point is it needs to be a temporary CO until it's completed,
Right.
just in case he leaves town and, you know.
I think we've done like a temporary CO on another project, actually, the church, I think, in that parking
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
there.
it's,
I think we did a temporary
it's not
CO
out of the
on.
ordinary.
right,
So-
right.
We do TCOs.
Okay,
Pretty frequently.
that's good. Perfect. That way you're covered.
Yeah. Well, thanks, appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, have a
Thank
good
you.
night. Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. Let's see, it's not 10 yet,
It's
so,
not 10, not yet.
okay, city attorney's business. Hurry up with it.
Yes, sir. Agenda item 12A is proposed ordinance 1454 that would annex the Lakeview Mobile Village. It's on Bayview Street. It is entitled, an ordinance annexing the Lakeview Mobile Village land lying in a portion of the southeast quarter of the northwest quarter and the northeast quarter of section 23, Township 34 South, Range 28 East, Highlands County, Florida, into the city of Sebring, Florida, and establishing an effective date.
Do we have any,
As you will see, there's a copy of the Declaration of Covenant the landowner
Yeah.
for this property has signed agreeing to annex.
I make a motion, we approve the ordinance on first reading as presented and schedule a second and final reading on October 20th, 2020.
Second.
okay. Do we have any discussion from the public? Any council? Go ahead, Kathy.
Denton.
yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes, Mr. Swain?
Agenda item 12B regards ordinance 1453, which is on your agenda for first reading. It would annex the Highlands Mobile Village that used to be known as the Orts Mobile Village. And that ordinance is entitled, an ordinance annexing the Highlands Mobile Village land lying in a portion of the northeast quarter of section 26, Township 34 South, Range 28 East, Highlands County, Florida, into the city of Sebring, Florida, and establishing an effective date. Again, the Declaration of Covenant by the landowner is attached to the agenda item summary.
Motion?
I make a motion, we approve ordinance on first reading as presented and schedule a second and final reading for October 20th, 2020.
Second?
Okay, got a motion, a second. Any discussion? Audience? Councilman? Kathy?
Denton.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes.
Agenda item 12C is ordinance 1452, which would annex the Sunny Pines RV and Mobile Home Park that lies just to the north of the last property that we looked at. That ordinance is entitled, an ordinance annexing the Sunny Pines RV and Mobile Home Park land lying in a portion of the northeast quarter of section 26, Township 34 South, Range 28 East, Highlands County, Florida, into the city of Sebring, Florida, and establishing an effective date. The Declaration of Covenant for this one's attached to the agenda item summary as well.
I make another motion that we approve ordinance on first reading as presented and schedule second and final reading for October 20th, 2020.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion, a second. Anyone from the audience? Any councilman? You're up.
Denton.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Stewart.
Thank you, Bob.
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes. City
I
admi-
have several things.
Wait a minute, the city administrator.
Well, he didn't have anything.
Moving on.
Well, actually,
Yes,
I think he does.
Oh, I gotta
think
look
he
at my
does too.
thing.
when I ask our building official to come up here, we'd like to discuss some options for the
Yeah,
program.
wow, Kathy, you jumped right
I
up.
did. I was already going to my thing.
Moving on.
He's been running meetings all day, so.
Yeah.
Hello, Mr. Griffin.
Where is my?
All righty.
These look like some high numbers here.
They're helping. So, as you're aware for the audience, we've had several comments with regards to the usability of the ramp and its new layout. And we've looked at several options to try to mitigate some of the concerns. We asked Lauren Jock Trucking, the contractor record, for several different options to help mitigate those issues, and you have a copy of the price sheet attached or in front of you. There are several things I dove the ramp last week, took some underwater photography. There are several areas that are of concern. Prior to the work being done, it was all covered with sand and silt, so it was really a covered circumstance. You couldn't tell the difference, but looks like initially, back in the, I'm guessing, 70s, when the ramp was initially built, they poured a single layer of concrete all the way across, and that included what was under the existing or the previous pier. That layer appears to be about 4 to 6 inches thick. At some point further down the road in time, they added another 4 to 6 inch layer just over the ramp sections. And then again later, and I don't know what the most recent overlay was, they've set another section of ramp that's about 12 inches, so 8 to 12 inches thick. So the drop off at the edge of the ramp where we removed the finger pier is on my arm, somewhere in this neighborhood. I have a tape measure when the underwater, but it's somewhere in the 12 to 15 inches from the top layer of concrete on the side of the ramp down to the bottom. My concern with that is if somebody's backing a trailer in, it's no longer protected by that wide dock that was there. The wheel drops off the edge of the ramp, and all of a sudden it's sitting on the axle, and you'll never get the axle back up without a crane or a tow truck or something to lift that trailer off, and they're gonna end up tearing up the new dock we just put in. So my recommendation, based on what we have in front of us, would be at the very least to consider the first option, which is listed as items number 1 and 2. That would be to fill level across the ramps and fill the section between the edge of the ramp and the seawall, so that it's all on the same plane. That way there's nowhere for a trailer to drop off. It's a smooth transition. And then the other option that I would consider would be option number 6, or item number 6, which provides some fender. We can either use the current contractor to do that, or we can source that locally. The other options are significantly higher than I would have expected. My recommendation for those, if in time the council did decide they wanted to mitigate some of the challenges that some folks may have with launching and trailering their boat, would be to put that out to bid. I think we'd be able to get much better pricing if we went that course.
This whole thing bums me out
It's frustrating.
because I don't understand the layout of the dock itself, because it doesn't make logical sense. And one of the questions that I asked you was that, is this typical? And the answer to that is yes. So why are we having to do anything to alleviate a typical brand new dock?
Correct. From my perspective, it is a standard dock. You'll see them on the coast all over the place with finger piers. There's a gap.
So but the way that that you got a big portion and a small portion and a big portion,
Sure.
which means there's gonna be damage to,
There can be.
well, but there will be, because we have novices that are
Sure.
involved with boating. And not like professionals, like weekend warriors. So I'm just puzzled. Did we see a copy of this before it was, of the dock layout?
Sure.
We did?
We participated. We actually referenced the docks that are on the coast for the construction of this.
Yeah.
The only difference between what we have in a lot of coastal areas is the seawall on the sides to mitigate sand from washing in.
And is any part of this elevating that seawall? Because it's underwater right now.
Correct. If we went and added the finger piers, it would cover the cap of the seawall. You
Mhm.
also, we're above our 100-year floodplain, our 100-year flood level on that lake right now.
I can appreciate that, but I've seen the water higher. 100% I've seen it higher.
It will come a little higher immediately after tropical storm or hurricane, but it can't get much higher. there's a fixed structure that runs through
Yeah.
Old Lake Jackson.
So
and
that,
it's
because
pretty
as it
efficient.
stands right now, because it's underwater, that's gonna be a hazard as well, big time. I mean, I'm just expressing my concern and my, bewilderment, really.
It's legitimate.
I have a question on number 6. I don't know that I fully understand that. The fender system for the new fixed pier, furniture installed fender. What exactly are you talking about there?
That was so the corner sections on that fixed pier, there was
Mhm.
some concern about people running their boats into that. That's on the landward side of the gangway.
I see, okay, all right. And then I'm gonna make a comment, I talked to Scott about it, and I think at a minimum, I'm gonna use your little drawing here for a minute.
Go, man.
That we need some piers, some concrete pilings, if you will, and I'll try to show you all that, along that gangway.
So that was
To
item number.
protect the gangway.
It's number
Item
3.
number
That's
3.
item number 3.
Yeah, and to protect the gangway, or boats are gonna run into that gangway, and it's gonna be a matter of, I'm gonna guess, 10 days to 2 weeks before they start bending that gangway at the hinge, because there's no reason for it not to bend if a boat runs into it.
I think you're, to a degree, and not to be curt, but
Yeah.
the strength of that gangway is pretty significant. It's designed to 140 mile an hour exposure D, so it's hurricane strength winds beating against it. It's pretty stout.
But what about when you get a 24-foot boat that's beating up against it? Because they're gonna tie off to that gangway. I guarantee you, somebody will.
It's
And you could put some signs there, and a lot of people won't, but somebody's going to, or the boat's gonna get loose from them a little. So I think we need to protect the gangway at least, a minimum, which I guess would be item number 3 there.
I can definitely appreciate that if you put it out for bid, it'd be better than this number.
Sure, and I'm not opposed to doing any of these things. I just think we can get better numbers if we put those items out for
Can-
bid. If we're going to open the ramp, I would recommend doing, prior to that being done, I would recommend doing item number 1 at the very least.
Is it ready to be opened at this point?
No, they've
Okay,
got
so you're-
sections of concrete they still have to pour. They've got some underwater.
Can
work
we
they
add
need.
number 3 after you do 1 and 2?
I was just gonna ask, if you're gonna pour the concrete all the way under, you're gonna
You
be able to
can,
dry those.
ideally, we'd set sonotubes in the area where the concrete's gonna be poured. So you can take a piece of water pipe, whatever the diameter of the pole is,
Uh-huh.
and pour around it so that your holes are already there.
Okay,
So you could pre-plan that to a degree.
okay. I do think we're gonna need those pylons there too.
Yeah, I think that
To
that would
protect
probably
ramp.
alleviate most of the problem. And it may actually make it so you don't need as many fenders, right? Although the fenders are negligible in cost.
Right. So thinners, I think they call for 65. I don't have a spreadsheet in front of me, but there were several boards, but we take that board all the way down because in a drought period, that water level will drop almost 6 vertical feet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we don't want a case where boats can get trapped under it if we only have the top section.
right.
Yep.
So, number 4 addresses the issue, and I just want to get council's guidance on this, whereby we may have a demographic here who launches their boat or backs their boat down, and in order to launch their boat, they got to climb up the trailer into their boat. Okay? And that's the concern that's being expressed, I think. And that was the rationale behind adding those, what do you call them?
Just finger piers.
Finger piers on each side of the boat ramp. So on the outer sides of the wall that you're talking about that's currently underwater,
Mm-hmm.
we would have piers that would go all the way out for the entire length to the wooden pole that's currently out there.
To the end of the
Right.
seawall.
Yeah. Into that seawall. And we would do that on either side of the boat ramp. That way, somebody who doesn't have the ability maybe to get up into their boat from the actual boat ramp itself, could walk down one of those finger piers and then step into their boat.
That's $150,000.
No, I'm not recommending we do this one. I
Yeah.
mean, from a perspective of with these folks.
Yeah.
But we may want to address it.
Why can't
You
they
know, with
enter
a-
their boat from the boat ramp from the other side, though, the fixed pier side now? I don't understand.
So
Because
if
the
you back,
gangway comes into play.
because the gangway comes into play. So if you back the boat down right now,
Uh-huh,
I'm not sure, or if the water recedes a little bit,
yeah,
you know, you might be at the level of the gangway,
uh-huh,
right? And there's
Right.
no access to, you know, to step down off the gangway because there's railings on each side
Right.
for the ADA compliance.
well, so, follow my logic for a minute, that even if the water's receded, they back down to the degree where their boat is level with the fixed pier, they get in their boat and then back down the rest of the way.
Fixed pier's not long enough for that to happen.
Have you guys all seen this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
So fixed pier, I believe, is 40 feet.
right,
At present, so as the water level recedes.
right, but
Yeah,
they don't
they're
have to
back.
have the boat in the water yet, is the point I'm getting at.
Oh, sure, no, they can back
still
up
get
next
in.
to it.
Yeah,
Step on.
I mean,
And then
that
they
would
get in
be
the
a-
boat, it would be a two-person operation, cause somebody
It's a
still has to
two-person
back up.
operation.
But, you know,
The one-person guy knows what to do. 'Cause if he's going fishing with one guy, he's gotta know how to operate a boat. It's
yeah.
And
let's
it
hope so.
really, I mean, if you unload a boat, if you have two people, somebody's in the boat on land, you're backing that thing in and then you take off, so.
Yeah,
But I
that's
think,
usually.
you know,
Wait.
in my opinion, I think we need to look at those, the fender system to protect the
Yeah.
gangway anyway.
Yeah,
And then, kind of maybe bid these out and say, okay, this is what it's gonna cost, and do a wait and see kind of, see how
Well, we
it's
can't do the
handled.
concrete then.
Well,
until-
we have to do the concrete.
Well, but
Yeah,
we
I'll
can't
do
do the
one, too.
concrete until we put the piles in.
Well, he said you could put those sonotubes.
Oh, you put solid,
Yeah.
are they gonna last? How long? I mean, they're
Well,
cardboard.
What we do when we do underwater work like that, we use PVC. water
PVC.
pipe. So you take a 12 or 14 inch
Yeah,
diameter
yeah,
PVC
so it's
pipe.
not, okay, it's
Yeah.
not a sonotube, it's a
Correct.
piece of PVC, okay.
Sonotube.
and then we
Okay.
could
I
bid
think
that
we
with
need to
you.
do
People
that,
understand what
but-
sonotube is.
Yeah.
The concrete needs to be done, cause you're gonna lose a
Right.
trailer.
No, I got you, I got you.
Yeah,
That will happen.
that needs to be.
No,
done.
I think, I agree. I think that's what we
Yeah.
should do now,
Yeah, the concrete.
is number 1, 2, and 6. And then price out number 3.
I can
3
go
and
along
4.
with that.
I'd do
And, well,
3.
price out 4 too, although.
Just to get a price.
Just
We don't
get,
have-
just see
we
if
don't
it's
have to do
see
it.
a realistic number.
Yeah, I think, and just my opinion, but number 4, you cannot do every contingency out there. You know, it's just cost prohibitive, and when you start talking about $150,000 for some person that can't figure out how to get in their boat, and I don't mean to make light of it, but still, you can't figure out every contingency here. And
That's me you're talking about.
Just glad you don't have a boat.
That's why we have the handicap ramp.
Yeah, thank you.
The gangway, I think they call it. But, yeah, certainly with 1 and 2 and 6.
All right, do we
and
need to
then-
make a motion for this?
Yes.
That's a yes?
Spending
Yeah,
money.
bring back a change order.
Okay, so I make a motion that we include change order 1, 2, and 6.
With
And-
the tubes.
With the tubes for the 4.
And tubes for
For
number
3.
4,
For
the
3.
sonotubes.
For 3.
Excuse me, 3.
And
And
what
then
did you say?
price out,
Tubes.
or
for
put out to
3.
bid the other items.
Appropriate funds from infrastructure, right? Can we do all that? We'll still have to bring back a budget amendment to them or not? Or can we go with that because of the value that we're talking about? We will.
That's got to be introduced in writing, so we'll bring that back with the
We'll bring back
contract
the
change
budget
order.
amendment resolution, but that gets us in
But we know where
the
you're
direction of where we need to go.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't ask me to repeat that.
I'm gonna repeat it.
Okay, good.
Again, 'cause well, can we, well, anyway. The motion was to approve 1, 2, and 6, approve change order 1, 2, and 6, and tubes, TUBES,
Close enough
There you go.
for number 3.
for number 3, and price out number 4. And appropriate funds from the infrastructure.
And price out number 3,
You're
too.
bidding out 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah,
Oh,
bidding
I
out.
thought you said tubes for number 3.
Well,
Yeah, but
we're
that-
installing the
that's
tubes.
just for future. The
Okay,
tubes
okay.
are for future.
Okay, so you're gonna price out 3, 4, and
5.
5.
3, 4, and 5, and then appropriate funds for the infrastructure.
Correct.
funds. Okay,
You got it?
yes, sir.
Did we get a second on that motion?
No, sir.
I'll second that.
You second? Okay.
Yes, we do.
I do now.
Okay, any,
Question, Laura.
yes, sir.
Greg, what does number 5 do to have those two 12-inch pilings at the end of the aluminum walls? What,
It just takes the wood piles out of play. Eventually, they're gonna rot out. The concrete will be there as long as the wall will be there.
I see.
While we had a crane there, work going on, if we were setting the finger piers, we might as well set them.
Okay.
The piles, I think, they're relatively inexpensive. They're 250 or so a piece.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. And
Any
number
other
3
comment?
will have
Labor side,
concrete
just like the
pilings.
paint, right?
Right.
Just
$1,000
$10,000 per
paint,
pile.
$1,000
$9,000
paint, $9,000 labor.
That's a lot of Budweiser.
Dang.
Any comments? Kathy?
Denton,
Sure.
Ivy,
Yes.
Lawrence,
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes. Now, Kathy,
Make a motion we
I
approve the
had a
bills.
lot of things, but I decided not to talk about them now, so.
Make a motion we approve the
Council needs to
bills.
approve the payment.
well, we got a motion.
I have to say it.
Oh,
first.
all right, say it first.
Council needs to approve the payment of bills.
Make a motion that we approve the payment of the bills as presented. Oh, I'm sorry.
Second.